That I do try and give a little update to what we're doing at United Way every year. One of the things that we as a board have been doing is we recently went through a strategic planning to really talk about where we want to be in the future. And I think over the next few years, you're going to see us taking on some big projects, being a little bit bolder in going forward beyond just funding agencies, which is so important and will still remain the bedrock of what we do. But I'm going to talk about two of those projects today that I'm really excited about, and hopefully you'll be excited about too. As we went through this strategic planning, we really tried to look at what is it that we're trying to do beyond just raising money and giving it to deserving agencies. What do we do? And so we really kind of zoomed in on those things that we found most important and that we think that United Way is in the best place to take on. And that includes coordinated community impact. You know, we work with 25 different programs all through Clay County, and we're able to help them work cooperatively. We can be a hub and we can be a resource. We want to support organizations that work in all ages and stages of life, from the early childhood education through things like Imagination Library. We just had our Dolly Disco here a couple weeks ago, and through that fundraiser raised about $1,500 for free books for kids, all the way up to our seniors at the Senior Center. We're a trusted fiscal agent, and if you are not sure about that, talk to Deb Christensen. She's our treasurer. She does an amazing job, and as she will tell you, she touches every single dollar that comes through, and she knows exactly where it goes. We want to provide a unified voice to advocate for the betterment of our residents. Another thing that we talked about a lot was the programs that ensure that all children have a quality childhood experience. There's some really interesting research that looks at the effect of poverty on children. And one of the things that they find is the more that you can create a consistent experience for children, so that children that are poor and children that are more affluent are experiencing the same thing. They're in the same activities, they're going to the same places, they're in the same schools. That's the kind of thing that can really alleviate some of those after effects of childhood poverty. And then also making sure that our next generation will thrive, which is kind of a second part to that. So in doing that, I think all of our programs already fit into these different categories, but we want to do more, and we want to see what else is out there that we can make Vermillion even better. We know that our poverty rate right now in Vermillion is about 37%. It's pretty high, and so one of the things that we've done in the last few years is have something called the Poverty Task Force, where we brought stakeholders together to talk about the challenges that we're facing and how can we do things better. One of the things that really came out of that is coordinating services and making it a little bit easier for people that are getting those services to get them without having to run all over town or be pushed back and forth between a bunch of different programs. So through that, we decided to bring what is called the 211 service to Clay County. So 211 is it's a federally FCC designated number for social service referrals. And it's all over the country, and it's getting to be more all over South Dakota, and I'll show you some maps in a second. So I'm just going to show you a super brief video that the Helpline Center did for 211 Day, which is this Saturday, which is when we launched 211 here in Clay County. And it gives you a little bit of a better idea about the kinds of things that 211 is for. Not now. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things that people could call 211 about. There's some information on your tables as well, and I really encourage you to take it with you and spread it around, because 211 is really only useful if people know that they can call it. A lot of our social services agencies, whether it's churches, the front desk at City Hall, the library, get a lot of calls, not always for things that they can actually provide services for. And the idea behind 211 is that it's a one place, one-stop shop, that when people are looking for resources, if they're hungry, if they're facing homelessness, if they just moved to Vermillion, they just don't know where anything is, all of that is available, and it's available 24/7, 365 days a year. The Helpline Center is located in Sioux Falls, and they provide this service for the whole state in cooperation with those of us on the ground. They also coordinate disaster response, and in the counties where they've used that, it's been really effective. So basically as a way to take some of the pressure off of 911 in disaster situations, and to do coordination. For example, if there's an area where there's a wildfire and they just need people to be calling in and saying, I saw, flames over here or over here, it's not necessarily something that they want to route through 911. They can route it through 211. 211 can provide that emergency manager with all that information. People contact 211 for all kinds of different basic needs and services. One of the really exciting things, I was just talking to Michelle Hinseth the other day about the mental health services that are provided in Vermillion, and although we're doing better on that front, there's still a lot of need. And one of the things that 211 also provides is it is the same place that if you were to call the National Suicide Hotline, you would be routed to the exact same people that are answering these phones at 211. Every single operator is trained to be a crisis, mental health, and suicide counselor. And so that's another thing that when we say people can call 211 if they're in crisis or in a mental health situation, they are hooked up with people that know what they're doing and can help them. There's a text option, so if you hate using the phone, you can text your zip code and have the conversation that way. So that's a pretty great service. So right now, 211 is available in about 93% of the country. In a lot of places, it is statewide. In South Dakota, it is done by county. So you can see these are the counties in green that currently have 211, and they're all covered out of the Helpline Center in Sioux Falls. My favorite part about 211 going forward is this website, which is 211 Counts. And what we're able to do through 211 Counts is we can track what people are calling about. So as time goes on, we can look at Clay County and we can know what calls have come in. Now, because Clay County has really only been active for 2 days, we don't have a ton of calls, but because it has been it's still been the suicide help number for years. For example, in the last year, we've had a number of crisis intervention and suicide calls that came from Clay County. And we can track that in real time. We can track it every day. So we can know if there's a spike in people that are calling about utility assistance in January. We'll be able to see that now. So that's really exciting. Currently, 211 is going to be funded through United Way. In the future, I hope that I can show that this is worthwhile enough that we'll have other partners on board, but our board felt like this was an important enough service that they wanted to bring it here. So now to our next project that John and Jessica will also be here to answer questions about if you are interested. We're calling this Community Connection Center. I don't know if we haven't officially decided on that as a name, but it kind of seems to be the one that we like the most. Over the last number of years, we've had a really strong relationship with these two organizations. They're the organizations that we support the most financially, and then we also end up just working with a lot because they are the ones that are touching probably the most number of people that fall into that, that poverty population. Out of the 25 programs, these two get about 22% of our allocations because they're doing really great and serious work. they've also been working together more and more, and you've probably seen that through things like the food giveaways. But they're also cooperating on a day-to-day basis, sharing food, trying to help each other and help clients. You've probably also heard that the needs of these programs are growing. The food pantry continues to set records pretty much every month, every year. It's always going up. And because of that, a lot of conversation has been happening about, do the current places that they are being housed have the capacity to handle the kind of work they're doing, as well as the conversations that we've been having in the Poverty Task Force about how can we provide a better experience to clients and people in need. So our vision is a physical space that could be shared by multiple social services agencies, including the food pantry, the Welcome Table Backpack Program, the Salvation Army, and United Way, as well as the potential for other partners to become involved. We've kind of talked about the types of services that we would want to provide and the way that we could, if we were all working together, address these issues more holistically, so that when someone comes in, it's not just giving them food and telling them about other resources and sending them away, or in the case of Salvation Army, giving them a voucher, and then saying, oh, and if you go across town, you can get the food pantry, and oh, on Monday nights, there's the welcome table, and we can have it all in one place, and we can work on this concept that John and I have talked about a lot, feeding the line versus shortening the line. If you're feeding the line, you're just focusing on making sure that people get fed, and that is always the #1 priority, and it has to be done. But especially as use of these programs increases, we have to have conversations about, but what are we going to do? How are we going to address this long term? Because we can't just keep growing and growing and growing. So how can we serve people better? So I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions, but this is where we are in looking to the future. We are looking for a location. We don't have a location in mind. We've seen some things that we like, but as you can imagine, the needs of these different organizations are varied, and to house that much food, we need a lot of space. So if you have a building and you want to give it to us, talk to me after today. If you know someone with a building and wants to give it to us, please give me their number. Right now, United Way will, or Untied Way, as it says up there, will be a major source of funding. We're working on a USDA facilities loan that would help cover the cost, and then our partner agencies that would be involved would also be sharing in some of those costs. Although, again, because of the work they do, they don't necessarily have the same resources to be putting into a huge project like this, which is why cooperating is so important. And then, of course, if we were able to go forward, we'd have some project-specific fundraising, i.e., we would come and ask you for money. Our dream, looking at our needs, would be something between 5,000 and 8,000 square feet, not easy to find, as you can imagine, something central and accessible. We have a lot of folks that don't have vehicles or maybe share a vehicle in a family, and that's something that already is a challenge. People are going across town, they're paying public transit every single time they ride, and while the food pantry, for example, does help out people with passes and things like that, we could use that money so much more efficiently if we just had one space for them to come to that was easy to get to. Our concept of what that would look like would include a food pantry shopping area, food storage, if we were able to have a welcome table eventually be a part of this, an eating area and commercial kitchen, a conference room for all of our different organizations, offices and things like that. We realize that finding something that can do all of this at once is not impossible, but really difficult, so we might be looking at phases. For example, the welcome table is probably the most difficult thing to accommodate, just because you need a big space to put that many tables. So that might be a phase 2 if we aren't able to immediately move everyone in. And then in the future, the hope would be that this could be something where you could expand the services that are offered to include health screenings. If we had a commercial kitchen, we could do cooking classes along with the food pantry food. So it wouldn't just be about getting food, it would also be about how to use the food. Financial literacy training, you know, we've talked with Lutheran Social Services about their involvement. Right now, they work out of the library, which is great, and that's a great cooperative arrangement. But for example, when we have someone come in month after month to Salvation Army, those are exactly the kind of people that I would love to have meet with Sylvia at Lutheran Social Services. But I have to say, all right, can you come on the third Thursday of next month to this totally different location? And you don't see those people again. So this would be a way of bringing those services to where people already are, hopefully. So I'm gonna have John and Jessica come up, and then we can take some questions together. Back to that. Joe.
I have a general question about United Way. What was
Sure.
your fundraising goal last year, and how much did you raise?
Our fundraising goal for this last campaign, which is actually still going until the end of the month, was 160, and we're at 141 right now. So we set a very aggressive goal. So we haven't totally made it, but we also have matching funds that at the end of the campaign will be put towards making sure that we make our budget. Other questions? Sorry.
Have you seen like this connection center concept? Have you seen this in any other community? What it looks like? I mean, do you have anything to draw from, or are you just coming up with your own?
There's a lot of other communities that have similar things. In Yankton, they have, what's it called? The Contact Center that has several different things together. And they also have a nonprofit center that their United Way has nonprofits kind of bundled together. So there are a lot of them throughout the country, and they all look different, kind of depending on who is the lead agency and what the needs of that community are. But it is a common model. George. If you're looking for resources, 211 is a perfect way to use that. And I would definitely encourage, it's not just for you to call for your own issues, but if you work with clients, if you work with people in need in the community, you can use 211 to find resources for them. Now, certainly if there is a question of someone maybe needing help beyond just referral, that would be something that you would want to report to DSS Adult Services. Any other questions? John and Jessica, do you want to say anything about the project?
I'd just like to emphasize what Kelsey already mentioned, is that Welcome Table and Weekend Backpack Program working very closely together with the food pantry. And it's really made a huge difference to us already. Accessibility to inexpensive food. People are asking me all the time, where are you getting this food? And sometimes I share where I get it. Sort of depends where it comes from, but it is almost a daily project where we're moving food from one organization to another. And it's been really gratifying to have this close relationship, and I think we could probably save some time and effort if we were all located in one central location. So I'm all for moving ahead with this project.
I would reiterate it again. We're seeing the same thing at the pantry. Our need is unprecedented. We have, like Kelsey said, hit number over number every single year. Last year, we wound up serving almost 7,300 people, which was by far the largest, about 1,100 over the previous year in our entire history. And then in December, that was our biggest month on record, and January was our next biggest month on record. So it beat December, and we're just seeing that continue. And we're struggling a lot with the space issue because we know that there's only so much that we can expand in a space that's not owned by us or along with other partner agencies. So we have that difficulty, and then the benefits of all of the partnerships that we're forging. It's just one of those things where we're all looking at it together and realizing that this is the perfect time and the perfect answer for a lot of the struggles and opportunities that we're seeing.
Thank you, guys. So this is a big project, and to do it, we're really going to need community support behind it. And so that's why we're kind of coming to you now to let you know about it. It's still really early in the process, but we want people to know that this is what we're trying to do, and we hope that you can get excited about it. I think it's going to be better for donors and for volunteers too. So we're going to be able to use both your money and your time more efficiently. Joe?
I know the welcome table doesn't have this, and I should know the answer to this, but does the food pantry have any means testing involved in giving away food?
Like a financial requirement or an income requirement?
Do you mean like income requirements and things like that? We actually removed our income requirements this month for the first time. That is because data from Feeding America shows that there is about 40% of the people that are food insecure in Clay County who make too much to get help from governmental sources or from local agencies. And so when we're thinking about 4 in 10 people don't get any help, we wanted to make sure that we really are available for everybody that needs it. And then when you look at Vermillion in general, we have high student debt, a high education that goes right alongside that, and high housing costs. And those issues make it so that even if we have a little higher income, it's not as accessible as it might be in another town where housing is lower or student loan debt is lower. So we took off of those income requirements, and now our only one is Clay County residents are the only ones that are allowed to use our services.
Any other questions? Joe?
What kind of building are you looking for? All at one level?
No, not necessarily, but I would say one of the things that's come up a lot is the ability to load and unload food. And so there at least needs to be one level that's easily accessible. You know, for example, we looked at a building that might have been more in our price range, but just could not think of a way to unload food that wouldn't be horrible. And that's something that John has been fighting for a long time, is being able to be in a building where he doesn't have to, you know, use essentially chutes and ladders to move food around. So again, it does, there's so many different issues that we have to keep in mind, and that's one of them, is that, and the ability for a semi to get in. That's another thing that came up in a space we were looking at. We were just like, how in the world would you get a semi here? And both Food Pantry and Welcome Table get food from Feeding South Dakota. It frequently comes in large trucks, and so you really need that that kind of accessibility too. Additionally, the USDA, in talking to them about their loan program, has very stringent handicap accessibility requirements for anything that we were to do. So there's a lot of things like that that we have to keep in mind too. And it's all good because obviously that's important for the clients to be able to get in as well. Well, thank you guys so much for having us. Please take some United Way and 211 information to go and take it to your workplace and just let people know it's there. It's already paid for, so we might as well use it.
Okay, so next week we have